All right, let's move on to the next question. This is going to be a fun one. What are some things you wish your congregation knew or you wish you could tell them? And so this is how they kind of give some context to the question. I'm sure we've seen lists online, but they seem to be from one person's experience. What are some things that you wish you could tell your congregation or what you wish they knew about being a pastor? What do you guys think?
Counting people every week gets old, huh, Andrew?
I kind of wish that they knew that I was an idiot a little bit more often. Sometimes people look at me like I'm a real grown-up in the room.
A
and I'm
doctor.
Like, do you realize just how loudly I was singing in sync on my way here this morning? I think in general there needs to be I think people should hold their pastors in high esteem, and I hope I live up to that as well. But I think part of the priesthood of all believers is having our congregants realize that we're pretty normal people and there's nothing super spiritual about us.
I think to that extent, to your same point, one thing I wish people realized is the way you approach your pastor and talk to them, especially on a Sunday morning, can impact them tremendously more than during the rest of the week. And so what I mean by that is the comment you give them after a sermon, even if you're like, man, when someone after my sermon wants to give me a correction, I'm always like, what do you want me to do with this information? My sermon's been preached. Like, I'm not going to re-preach the sermon next week. Like, what? It surprises me how harsh people could be on a Sunday morning right after a service. And like, there's all this energy to accomplish this service, to preach your sermon, to lead the worship. And it's just like so deflating, right? And it's just like, I wish there was a better sense of like, I'm not, it's kind of like the same idea of like how people are so critical to celebrities on Twitter. And it's like, well, they're just faceless people on TV, so it doesn't matter. It's like, I'm a real person, and the words you say to me can affect me negatively and positively. Maybe I need to critique. Maybe I need to hear it. But like, can we use some?
Can I get some lunch first, though? Like,
yeah. Can you feed me a little bit before
we? Hey, Pastor, you said 29 times in your sermon today.
Oh no!
But thank you for that.
Yeah. You were asleep the entire time too. So
you missed 15 of them during your nap.
I jotted a little list down, Andrew.
Oh, let's go.
You did not. I can see the Chat GPT on your phone.
No, I would never.
I
would not put the question in Chat GPT just to see if AI would resonate with my soul at all.
He wants his congregation to know he uses Chat GPT for his sermons.
I've been putting my sermons into Chat GPT when I'm done.
Really?
And so like when
I haven't done that yet.
I did this Saturday night. I put it in. I said, "Are there any obvious application points that I'm missing?"
Oh,
that's actually good.
It was
yeah,
and it was great.
Did you use any?
I used one of them. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. There's a little list. So I jotted this question in ChatGPT and just to see like are there some of the things that I was thinking of, and there's a couple that are absolutely. One you guys already hit on. We're human beings too. Like we are not perfect.
I believe I said that they would know how big of an idiot I am.
I mean, yes, that is true. We can't do everything. That's huge. I don't care if it's a smaller church or larger church context. There's sometimes this like. I don't know if it's often spoken out loud, but it's kind of unspoken that, of course, the pastor is going to be there. Of course, he's going to do that thing. This one's huge. Frank, you just hit on this a little bit. Sundays are emotionally draining. I don't know that there's anything quite like the feeling of...
And physically, too, man.
Physically, emotionally.
I only have one service,
absolutely.
But my back hurts and my knees hurt when I'm done. Like...
We had
you should try sitting down. Makes it easier.
A guy who's been out of town for a bit. He was back yesterday, had a big smile on his face, and he like waited in a little line to you know how it is. Like after church, people wait to chat with you. It's super sweet. And one of our younger attenders, and he's like, "Hey, I just wanted to check in on you because I know we went to 3 services back in August, and I'm just wondering how are you doing." And that was like a really sincere, honest question. Like you just wondered, like physically, are you okay? Like how draining is this emotionally? And I told him there was a season there, like October, November, where it was really hard. Like I was having a really like hard season, and having Frank come on board has been huge for us and being able to kind of breathe a little bit. So
in that case of Celsius that you have,
I do not drink Celsius. Frank, how about this one? Encouragement goes a long way.
Oh yeah, that's good.
I think that's good, right? Like just a little, there's a sweet lady every week. She'll find like one nugget in the sermon where she just knows like this one encouraged me, and she's always has to tell me. I look forward to that now. Like I enjoy hearing how that like one thing impacted you in that way, that's really encouraging to hear. And this one I really agree with. Our families have to make sacrifices too. Ministry families are often just overlooked or not thought about very often. But the strain on the family is very, very real. And if you are not careful, you can forget that your first ministry is actually to your family. And I think a lot of pastors, unfortunately, fail in this area.
Tim, you're the one that had like 12 kids.
I'm aware. I'm aware.
I would say for me, the biggest one is just like we have a sense of humor. We like funny stuff. I feel like people hide their humor from us all the time. And, one of the things that like being around, particularly like teenage boys, as I'm a baseball coach, like has brought back to me is just like, I mean, it's okay. Like your pastor laughs at things that you probably hide from him. And there are jokes and stuff that I laugh at that like I probably wouldn't tell that joke. And so that's a hard thing about being a pastor is like kind of like sometimes we feel like we have to shield our like sense of humor from people because we like have this unspoken expectation that they have an expectation of us that we're like super sheltered, like we don't laugh at things that are pretty funny. And so if I could tell my congregation anything is like my sense of humor is probably pretty similar to yours, and that's okay. Like, I mean, I say this all the time. Like, you're going to tell me that Jesus was around a bunch of teenaged fishermen and they weren't like trying to get him to crack up and stuff? Come on. Like, they for sure were telling jokes that were probably not the most appropriate, but that were funny. And I'm sure Jesus had a pretty good sense of humor.
I'm going to say at some point, Jesus probably farted near a campfire. I'm just going to say.
That's an old Driscoll line.
Is it really? Wow. I don't know how I feel about that. But
yeah, pretty good.
If you're sleeping outside with a bunch of dudes and, eating fish, a campfire may have been involved with some flatulence at some point.
That's wild. Now, it's funny that Tim did that because I had done the same thing. And it's weird that ChatGPT gave me a totally different list than it gave Tim. Yeah. It's like it knows us. So, but anyways, I don't know. Looking at all these different things it gave us, I think the one thing that I really feel is even on our worst day, we really want what's best for you, because like I think sometimes people think that we're just trying to like run a show or do a thing. That's not at all what we're trying to do. And even when we're making calls that are like not popular, it's not coming from or it shouldn't be coming from a place of like selfishness. It's like we're genuinely seeking the Lord in what we're doing. So like if you have an issue, kind of like Frank, the absolute worst anxiety you can give me is Sunday after I get done preaching a sermon, a current comes up and says, "Hey, I need to talk to you about something on Thursday." It's like, really, you're going to hang that over me all week, and it's like a serious thing. Whereas throwing in the gap there, hey, my pastor really does want what's best. I think that a lot of assumptions could be avoided there about our motives, which goes back to we're just humans and we can get pretty discouraged as well. And if you want an unhealthy church, find an unhealthy pastor who's super severely discouraged and who's paralyzed because he's afraid he's going to upset people. I think that's an important thing. Like, we really want what's best for you, even when it's not popular.
I think one thing I would add here is Sunday is not my only chance for you to talk to me. Like, I'm available other days as well. So if there's something you want to chat about, Andrew, there's a guy who without a shirt on. Sorry, this is very distracting.
And barefoot.
And barefoot. I would say make sure your congregation has.
Is that a vape he's holding?
Stop. And a doggy poop bag.
Okay.
Make sure the congregation has your contact, like whatever the best way to get a hold of you. If it's your email, if that's easier. I don't know if you're open to giving out your cell phone. I typically do give out my cell and just ask people to text me if there's something we need to chat about. But I always feel bad when someone's trying to set a meeting with me on a Sunday and I don't have my phone readily available to check my schedule. And I'm like, can you just reach out to me tomorrow? Like, shoot me a text, shoot me an email. We can absolutely get something on the calendar. But Sundays are really difficult times to set meetings and to talk about, a whole lot of other stuff.
Tim, with your new Google Workspace, let me tell you about Calendly.
Go ahead.
Calendly is a great tool you can just hand to people on a Sunday morning.
Huh.
Like, hey, you want to have a meeting with me?
Schedule it.
Get on here. You'll have my calendar.
I have one more,
Yeah.
and I don't know if this is just me or if this is everybody. it weirds me out when someone calls me pastor. If they call me Pastor Andrew, fine. But my first name happens to be Andrew. And yeah, when
weirds me out too. Hey, pastor. I'm like, who? Oh, me?
Like what other profession does that happen in?
Doctors.
Yeah, but that's
immediately had the answer. Thanks.
Well, yeah, but I still think that's a little bit different,
Professor,
because they probably don't call you doctor at the grocery store. It's like in the context,
probably
of where you are, in the room. If
I see my doctor at the grocery store, I'm hitting him with a "What's up, doc?" You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you got
sure.
Yes.
There's a sweet woman at Lakeview who's talking to me, and she's like, "I need to tell Pastor this. I need to talk to Pastor about that." And it's
I know exactly who you're talking about.
I was going to bring this up. That's even weirder. Or I have people in my church who will make announcements or preach sermons and be like, "Last week, Pastor said blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Just use my name.
My name is Jeffrey.
I'm not a faceless robot."
Yeah, this is good. Man, there's so many good points being brought up here. I want to hear from you guys. In fact, I'm going to post this question in the Facebook group. I would love to know: is there a thing that you wish your congregation knew about you and the ministry? Because, I think that the one common thing is that we're real people. I think one thing that's been kind of said here that I think is true too is this: as I'm, as Tim and I are working together, kind of, thinking about Lakeview, as I'm dreaming about what the church plant's going to be like, and I'm sure you guys are kind of dealing with this too. It's like when you make decisions and changes in the church and you're like, hey, this ministry might need to change or even close down. It's not because we're begrudging people, trying to control. I heard one time someone said oh, this is just the pastor's vanity show, or this is just their show. It's no, we have a mission here to make disciples. And if we're expending sideways energy over here, we just want what's best for our people. And Delmar, you said that know that even on our worst day, we want what's best for our people. And it's just if there's one thing I can do is help the congregants assume the best about their leadership, and then ask questions and be okay with hey, this is why we made this decision. I do think sometimes pastors have a bad way of communicating the change.
I was going to say I give credit to Tim, kudos Tim. The times I've been to your church and seen you preach, you always start with hey, welcome to Lakeview, and then you say the mission statement. Or some version of that. And I think that's super helpful. And I mean, that's something that I'm always dang, I got to do that more. Just remind people of hey, here's who we are. It's just a part of it. Andrew, I don't know if you do that too. I haven't seen it, so I don't know. Sorry.
Every Sunday, he's just reminding you, I'm doing what Jesus is doing.
I'm doing what Jesus does.
Yeah, that's right.
Down, and I'd love
there
to
will
eat
be
with
cinnamon rolls at some point during the year.
Yeah, we're doing chili cook-off next week. It's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty excited.
Super Bowl.
Super chili.
Super Bowl chili cook-off, not during the Super Bowl.
Dude, nobody has asked me about having a Super Bowl party, and I'm not bringing it up.
I have got asked at least a dozen times, and it's my favorite answer. No, we're not. I've said it over and over, and everyone's like, really? I'm like, yep, we're not.
You can do it at your house, though. Feel free.
That's what I said.
Watch the game at home. Be awesome.
I've gotten 3 invites, and I've declined them all.